check out Jonathan Pye's take on this. I have mixed feelings about Jonathan Pye, though. I'm just gonna put that out there initially. I might get into that. Anyway, let's just watch his take on the strikes first of all. What's a Jonathan Pye? Okay, let me just explain. If you're not familiar with who Jonathan Pye is, like, he kind of got big because he sort of started doing these viral videos. He's an actor, and he sort of did these videos where he sort of pretends to be a BBC political correspondent, but he like pretends that he's like going off the record. Like, he'll start a video where he's doing some sort of political correspondence, but then he sort of like goes off the record and then like goes into like these rants, which are supposedly unscripted, but they're very scripted. He kind of went viral. Like, some people thought he was like an actual real BBC or like news correspondent, and some people like knew that he was just an actor, but either way, like, people enjoyed his rants anyway. And I get it, like, it's like written in quite an entertaining way, but at the same time, I think that he himself / the actor who plays him are one and the same, and that one person, I believe, overall I get the impression that he's quite center right. He calls himself satire, and I kind of feel like he uses the word satire to perhaps get out of the responsibility of explaining some of the things he says. But perhaps I'll maybe get into that. I'll just watch this.
Chairman said that demands for a 19% pay rise for nurses would cost the NHS £10 billion, which should instead be spent on NHS frontline services. Back to you, Chris. Gaslighting fuckers. If nurses aren't the NHS front line, I mean, what about ambulance drivers and paramedics? Are they not frontline services? Give them a decent pay rise, you fuckers. They deserve it. Find the money. You all spring into action every time you crash the economy. You can find the money then, get round the table, make a decent offer. Instead, they're sending in the army. The bastards who wrecked the economy, squandered our reputation on the international stage, sold off any and all of the country's assets for a quick buck, are getting their mates in the media to tell you that it's bus drivers, bin men, teachers, nurses, postmen, passport control workers and rail workers who are throwing the country to the dogs. Don't believe them. They are lying to you. Well, still some weeks ahead of Christmas industrial action, misery for commuters, patients and holidaymakers, frustration and anger at the unions for deciding to strike over Christmas.
Thing is, like, he can do like rants about things like that and sound like he's pretty based. Like, I didn't disagree with anything that he was saying there, but he is like consistently pushed by the BBC when he's doing like really sort of like reactionary, like, it feels like right-wing content. Like, let me just kind of fucking show you like what
Next up,
the kind of shit that he'll do in his live shows. This is the BBC putting this up.
Next up. Mansplaining. Okay. Kill me now. Okay. Actually, just before I get going,
I don't know, like, what he's trying to do. I feel like maybe he's trying to play like both sides that are not either very left or very right. He's playing sort of center left and center right. He's sort of saying things that both sides would mostly agree with. And I feel like this live show that he does here is like, he's definitely doing the kind of rhetoric that the sort of British center right would like really respond to. Like, the sort of middle class white people, they see themselves as like liberal, and they think that they support rights for the disenfranchised people of society, yet they quite like the status quo and they don't like things to be shaken up too much. Words like, mansplaining or like anything in this. Like they think that's going a little bit too far. Like I quite like things the way that they are. I'm not sure what this new word mansplaining means. It seems a bit silly to me. Like I feel like it kind of really panders to like that kind of group of people. He has this whole show where he like this thing supposedly spins around and then he picks a word and he's supposed to like explain what that word means to these, you know, middle class white people in his audience that really respond to his content. But what he doesn't do is give the real definition of that word. He gives his own definition of that word. And then he rants about it. And people find that very entertaining. But it's not the real issue. Basically, this whole show could be called straw manning. Exactly. Straw manning.
Me now. Okay. Actually, just before I get going, to those gentlemen who have brought their female partners with them, whose female partners were unaware of this word up until this moment, to those gentlemen, I apologise because you're about to never win an argument again, okay? So I'm sorry about that. Mansplaining. Mansplaining is an attempt to curtail the phenomenon of men interrupting women and explaining things to them in a rude and patronising manner. Mansplaining, okay? Here's the thing, and I can only speak personally, okay? I can only speak personally, but if you're a woman and I'm explaining something to you in a rude and patronising manner, it won't ever be because you're a woman. It will most likely be because you're a fucking cretin, okay?
Hilarious, bro. You just completely changed the definition of the word mansplaining. The word mansplaining never meant a man explaining something to a woman in a patronizing tone. It always meant men who were patronizing to women because they were women as a result of misogyny. That's always what mansplaining meant. Yet what he's done is he's changed the meaning of the word and now he's gone off on a little rant about why he thinks that's ridiculous. But see, he gets out of this by saying, well, Jonathan Pye is a satirical character. He's not real. Therefore, he can sort of separate Jonathan Pye from his own views. When I think it's quite clear that these are his own fucking views. If you watch interviews with him where he's Tom Walker, i.e. himself, he quite clearly believes everything that Jonathan Pye says. He's quite clearly just giving his own views. Yet he sort of uses this Jonathan Pye character as a way to separate himself from any real responsibility from what he's saying. And that's where I kind of have a problem with him because, like, yeah, he can be like, oh yeah, but I'm doing comedy. And what I'm trying to do is make people laugh, and that should be the only rule in comedy. Obviously, there's always meaning behind comedy, right? And I think it's a bit of a cop-out. I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out to be like, oh, well, I'm just doing a character. I make videos where I literally put my views on the line, you know, and like I put my views out there, and I don't try and say, that's just the character of Mooncat saying that. That's not Georgie saying that. That's the Mooncat character. I never try and say that. Like with my content, I still manage to, like, I hope, make people laugh. I can still do comedy whilst not trying to hide behind some kind of persona. Oh, my fucking camera. I'm sorry. The fucking FBI or CIA or the government cut my camera again. But anyway, I might need to give it a little bit of a break. Maybe because I've got this fucking radiator going on, like fucking full blast. Because the cables are quite close to the radiator, maybe. Right, I've just turned the radiator down a bit, so. But as I was saying, I can make jokes, political jokes, and I can put my fucking opinions out there. Basically, I put my fucking lady balls on the chopping board, and if someone wants to come at me for my opinions on something, they fucking can. And I'm out there. My balls are out there in the open. People can come for me all they like. But with like someone like Jonathan Pye, he's like hiding behind this character of like, oh, well, you know, maybe it was irony. You don't know that because Jonathan Pye is a character and you don't know where the irony ends and the real shit begins. And I feel like it's kind of a bit of a pussy move to take, really. Like, if you're hiding behind something like that, just literally be honest and say that it's you saying this. Let's watch a bit more of this.
If I'm shouting over you, or if I'm explaining something to you as if you're a fucking toddler, right, your gender will have nothing to do with it. I am a big believer in equal rights. I am a rude, arrogant prick to everyone I meet. That man spoke rudely to you. You are a victim of prejudice. He was being prejudiced. You're a victim. Women are victims. Women are victims. They're all victims. Women are victims. Women are victims. No, you're not. You're fucking hardcore. You're hard as fucking nails, right? You bleed out of your vagina, right? You bleed out of your vagina and I could do that. I could fucking... Quite often, you bleed out of your vagina during a meeting, if need be. I'll plug it out with some cotton wool. She hasn't got balls, she's got a bleeding vagina, she's about to chair the PTA committee meeting. She's a fucking warrior. You're fucking warriors.
See, this is how he gets out of it, though. I'm going to tell you, first of all, that mansplaining is not a thing. But then I'm going to throw you off by basically trying to insinuate that I'm not a misogynist, though, because I think women are hardcore because they have periods. Wow. So, like, you forget about all of that other stuff where you think that I might have been a misogynist. I'm actually not, because I think women are hardcore. It's like the most lib shit ever, you know?
You're not weak. You're not victims. Isn't that what feminism used to be about? I don't know, maybe I missed a memo. I don't know. Look, I think we can all agree that we're equal. All right, but if I'm honest, women are better by a country mile, all right, but come on, sugar tits, enough with the mansplaining bollocks, yeah? It's a woman in the third row whose face is going, I don't know where the irony starts and where it stops. That's half the fun. You dissect it in the pub afterwards. That's the point, isn't it?
No, that's how you protect yourself, isn't it? That's how you protect yourself by apparently not knowing where the irony ends and where it begins.
Oh, fuck me, okay. Cultural appropriation. Another example of utter lefty fucking lunacy, okay? Cultural appropriation is this idea that if you are inspired by or borrow from another's culture, that is in effect an act of stealing and is therefore an offensive act. It's a difficult one to get your head around because it's...
Wow, can we just listen to that, to that fucking... apparently what was supposed to be the definition of cultural appropriation again, because I think I could look
What are we supposed to do?
Badger, what we're supposed to do is look up the definition of cultural appropriation. The actual definition of cultural appropriation. Badger, stay up there. Badger, stop.
Drop!
The actual definition of cultural appropriation is unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas, etc. of one people or society by members of another, and typically more dominant people or society. So, like, basically it means if you take something from another culture, but do it in a sort of, like, offensive way. Like, basically nuance and context is needed to be taken into account here. He doesn't mention any of that in his little explanation of what cultural appropriation is meant to be.
Cultural appropriation. Another example of utter lefty fucking lunacy, okay? Cultural appropriation is this idea that if you are inspired by or borrow from another's culture, that is in effect an act of stealing and is therefore an offensive act.
That's absolutely not what cultural appropriation is.
Difficult one to get your head around because it's so fucking demented. So I'll give you a few examples. I'll give you a couple.
So here we go on the straw man tirade yet again.
White students who have dreadlocks have been targeted for racist behaviour. She was forced to apologise because apparently her wearing dreadlocks was offensive to black people. Here's my question, which black people? Trevor McDonald, Idris Elba, the black one out of S Club? You don't get to decide what black people are offended by. How fucking patronising is that? Oh, it's cultural appropriation. Oh, it's stealing from other cultures. So is eating sushi. So is dancing the Macarena. So is shopping at IKEA. So is putting your back out attempting the Kama Sutra.
I love how we've like just completely left out all of this systemic racism that black people have gone through specifically because of their hair. I love how we've just like left all of that out. That's not relevant here because
You brave little cis boy.
this guy knows.
It's all fucking cultural appropriation. We all steal the best bits from other cultures and the Macarena. You know, Surely life is about opening yourself up to the world, not shutting it out. Okay, you take this to its natural conclusion. It's the end of art. It's the end of fiction. No writer will ever be able to write about anything but their own personal experiences. Every book will have to be a fucking autobiography. We know how tedious they are. Segregated restaurants, Italian for Italians, Mexican for Mexicans. What are we left with? Fucking Greggs? Cheese and onion pasty, please. Cheese and onion pasty, please. Chicken tikka slice, please. Fuck off, you racist. Is it cultural appropriation having listened to Donna Summer? Should I be discouraged from listening to UB40? The answer to that is obviously yes, but for a host of different reasons. Segregated concerts, Lionel Richie and Jay-Z for the blacks, fucking Adele and fucking Coldplay for the whites, although Adele will no longer be able to perform because she's too highly influenced by Mobo, which of course makes her a fucking racist. That sound you can hear is the sound of Martin Luther King spinning in his grave as his dream of little white and black kids playing together, being judged by the content of their character, not the colour of their skin, is being pissed on by well-meaning liberals. Fucking grow up!
This is one that made it pretty big when Donald Trump got elected. But his entire rant, like, he's against Donald Trump, obviously, but he finds a way to blame the entire thing on the left.
No, I only just fucking got here. Yeah. Morning, Tim. Morning. Howdy. How was Washington?
Weirdly, Jonathan Pye has become one of the most influential political commentators in the UK, even though he's like just a random actor who he has like no background in political commentary whatsoever. And interestingly, his writing partner used to be Andrew Doyle. Up until 2019, his writing partner used to be this guy. Where does he work now? Well, he works now. He's done a lot of work for Spiked magazine. And guess where he works now? GB News. where he hosts a weekly show titled Free Speech Nation. Yeah, and also he does this character on Twitter called Tatiana McGrath. This is his like hilarious comedy character that he hides behind in much the same way as Jonathan Pye, to like basically be like, this isn't really me saying this. This is just like a funny comedy satire person that I made up. It's not really my views. So he like made up this Titania McGrath person. This person's basically just saying whatever Andrew Doyle wants to really say, but he's too scared to say it. Just like brilliant bits of transphobia, everything you'd expect from, like the worst person ever. The same few jokes that you get from the right, like, oh, I identify as a disabled person. Just the same joke over and over again. It's that kind of shit. But this person used to co-write for Jonathan Pye.
I'm not shocked at all, Tim. Tim, I haven't even been into makeup yet, Tim. I'm not shocked at all. I've been saying this for fucking months. Nearly a year. What did they think was going to happen? People keep saying to me, how did this happen? They're dumbfounded. But it's so simple. The left did this. This is my fault. People like me. When are we going to learn? The left...
See, it kind of starts off a little bit based, like, yeah, Hillary Clinton, like, did all of this. But then he's like, but it's the left's fault. It's all the left's fault. It's nothing to do with the right or the way that like the mainstream media is like clearly has right-wing bias. No, it's not. Nothing to do with that.
Same old shit. Trump represents a change, a terrifying change, but a change nonetheless. Hillary represented very little, actually, because she protects corporate interests.
Where's the real issue coming from there, Jonathan, if both sides are reflecting corporate interests? Where's the real problem coming from there? Is it perhaps
Capitalism?
Being offended doesn't work anymore. Throwing insults doesn't work anymore. Persuade them otherwise, because if you don't, I'll tell you what you get. You get President Trump.
Most of his commentary revolves around the left is stupid for not allowing the right to say what they really think, and now the right are too scared to say what they really think, which, from my perspective, isn't really what's happening.
Well, it's a beautiful day, so we're up on the studio roof. Today we're going to be discussing Laura Ingalls Wilder, author of The Little House on the Prairie books, whose name has been removed from a writing award because her books display stereotypical attitudes and contain racial language. I mean, for fuck's sake, I'd be fucking amazed if they didn't, frankly. These books, they're based on the author's childhood between 1870 and 1894. That's like 5 years after slavery was abolished. The books were written during the Jim Crow laws. It's almost as if cultural norms aren't fixed and change with the passage of time. Who is this helping? No one. No one needs protection.
See, the difference here is it's been taken out of the running to win an award. It's not like it's been erased from history. It's like it's like right-wing people thought the same things about ripping statues down. Like, ooh, you were erasing them from history. No, I don't think... At this point, I don't think anything's being erased from history at this point. Like, literally everything's just so ingrained into all the records that we keep at this point. Nothing's being erased. What we're doing is we're stopping celebrating them. That's an entirely different thing. When you put up a statue of some person who basically got rich through owning slaves or like shipping slaves across oceans and building an entire company out of charging people to ship slaves across that ocean. If you put a statue up of that person, you're kind of celebrating what they did. And if you tear that statue down, you're kind of saying, you know what, maybe society's maybe got to the kind of point where we've realized that's not so cool anymore. But it's not like we've forgotten it happened.
Who is this helping? No one. No one needs protecting from Little House on the fucking Prairie. We live in the most inclusive, progressive, diverse, prosperous society ever in human history, yet we behave as if we've never had it so fucking bad. We're told that there is prejudice wherever you look, because there aren't enough female biographies on Wikipedia.
That's the thing, though. That's another straw man. I don't think anybody's saying human rights in general for like any minority is worse than they've ever been. I don't think anybody's trying to say that. I think what people are saying is this is still in progress. We haven't achieved full equality yet. We might have done with laws and like, you know, what things say on paper, but we're certainly not there yet with culture. You just have to take one look at the manosphere to realize that, or one look at the various white supremacist groups to realize that. But no, everything's fine. Because everyone's technically got the same rights on paper, it's all fine. And we're not allowed to talk about the ongoing systemic oppression that people go through. We should all be skipping around, whistling and being all happy because we've got it better now than we've ever had it before.
Fucking Google has taken the egg out of its salad emoji to make it more inclusive for vegans. Is there a single vegan in the world that feels triggered or oppressed or unrepresented by a salad emoji with an egg in it?
Why are you so triggered that they took the egg out? Does it affect you, Jonathan Pye? Why are you so obsessed with eggs?
What does this achieve? Who does this help? We never had to fight in a fucking war. Yet my grandmother watched the Battle of Britain taking place above her house. Nazis in planes over her house.
Guys, we're not allowed to complain about anything because Jonathan Pye's grandma lived through a war. Okay? Next time you even think about talking about any kind of oppression in society, any kind of systemic oppression, you just remind yourself of Jonathan Pye's grandma living through the war. That'll put you in your fucking place, all right?
The Pride fucking sponsored Costa coffee. Who does this help? I'd like a skinny latte, please, with 1 pump of sugar-free hazelnut.
I mean, yeah, like this pink washing shit obviously is just corporate grandstanding. He like mixes some like kind of based takes into this, but it's kind of dangerous because it's like the kind of middle class white people who he sort of panders to with his content are gonna like, they're kind of gonna be like, oh yeah, I agree with that. Therefore, everything else that you're saying is obviously based as well.
I just need the fucking caffeine. Give me my fucking skinny latte. We don't call it a skinny latte anymore, sir, because that phrase is considered fat shaming. So I would just fuck off then.
I mean, that's never happened. but cool. Funny joke, bro. Skinny latte. You can't say skinny latte anymore. Funny joke, bro.
I see people who define themselves as anti-fascist on their Twitter profiles. Who isn't? I'm sorry, that's the default.
There's a lot of people who aren't anti-fascist.
This is the politicisation of art, which of course is the end of fucking art, and it's fucking everywhere. J.K. Rowling got a pasting from LGBT activists because Dumbledore isn't openly gay in the new Fantastic Beasts film. Is this really the height of the gay community's oppression? I don't for 1 second believe that it is, but if it is, the war's already been won.
No, Jonathan, it's not, but representation in media is absolutely a huge part of it. I'm just going to answer that question for you there.
Well, it's a beautiful day, so we're up on the studio roof. Today, we're going to be discussing Laura Ingalls.
You brave little cis boy.
His whole centrist, I guess, stance is like the left don't want to debate the right anymore. All the left want to do is name call. All the left want to do is like call the right racists, misogynists, transphobes. Thing is that like this is the whole like Elon Musk thing, isn't it? It's like he calls himself a free speech absolutist, but nobody's a fucking free speech absolutist. It all comes down to like where you consider your Overton window to be. Dependent on where you are in the political spectrum, your Overton window is going to be in a different place. And as a right-wing person, your Overton window is going to be in a much different place to a left-wing person. That's where the whole sort of debate on free speech it comes down to, really. Because there are things that are out of the realms of a right-wing person's Overton window. There are certain talking points that are out of the Overton window of both the left and the right. One of those things being paedophilia. Nobody on the left or the right can be like, yo, I think paedophilia is pretty cool, bro. I think I should be allowed to have sex with kids. Nobody cut that out of context. Libertarians think that. Well, yeah. The Overton window is basically like the window of talking points within your view that is like acceptable. So like I would say on the left, and no matter where you are in the sort of general main political spectrum, you pretty much like agree that paedophilia, advocating for paedophilia is outside of the Overton window, right? But it wasn't always outside of the Overton window. The thing I find interesting is like now it is successfully moved outside of the Overton window. But now because it's moved outside of the Overton window, the right have started using it as a sort of weapon against the left. And now they're sort of like starting, because it's like sort of universally seen as this really bad thing, because there's an obvious victim there. The right have started using it as a weapon against the left and basically saying, well, it's the whole Pizzagate thing and the whole like LGBT teachers grooming kids thing as well. Because it's been moved out of the Overton window of like every mainstream political view, it's like now the right are using it as a weapon against the left and being like, well, if I don't agree with you, you're a pedo. I find that quite interesting. But it wasn't always outside of the Overton window. It was not outside of the Overton window, even kind of quite recently in the UK. If you've never heard of this, I'm gonna show you something quite disturbing that existed in the UK. I think in the 70s, this existed. It was a group of people called the Paedophile Information Exchange. They existed through 1974 to 1984, a whole decade. This wasn't always outside of the Overton window, guys. Not all British pies are good, guys. Some British pies are very bad. It's not a pucker pie, it's a pedo pie. It was a British pro-paedophile activist group founded in October 1974 and disbanded in 1984. The group campaigned for the abolition of the age of consent. It was described by the BBC in 2007 as an international organisation of people who trade obscene material. Although it had few women paedophiles as members, the organisation's membership was mainly young, professional, educated male paedophiles, including youth and care workers. Its membership in 1977 was around 250, mainly focused in London and the South East. The same number for membership was also reported in 1981. Like, they actually made this into a committee. Okay? Like, they weren't underground or any, like, this was within the Overton window. in the 70s, okay? And then we progressed and we realized, oh, maybe that's not so cool anymore. And it's like we're going through similar things all the time, you know? Pretty fucked that Jonathan Pye named himself after these dudes. My point is that no one's a free speech absolutist. Like, I don't think anybody on the right is going to be like accepting of some kind of organization that comes onto social media now advocating for pedophilia like these guys were. I mean, like, yeah, cool, free speech, bro. Nobody's doing that. It's just like where your Overton window is. Obviously, like, both sides see children as the victim in this situation. But with the battles that we're battling now, it's like the left see women or like people of color as victims, whereas the right will not see them as victims. The left are like basically saying, well, that's outside of the Overton window because these people are actually being victimized. And the right are basically saying, well, no, they're not being victimized. We're just sort of like facts over feelings. We're just saying it how it is. And that's where the whole sort of like shit comes from. It's like they don't see them as victims, systemically being victimized by society, whereas the left do kind of see them as systemically being victimized by society. It's not surprising that the left kind of want to call people racists and misogynists, because sometimes in certain situations, I'm not saying the left never get it wrong, but like in certain situations, it's like absolutely necessary to actually say to someone, that is racist, what you're saying. And you should point that out. Like, you can't be scared of using that word if you think that what someone's saying is genuinely racist or misogynistic. Surely using that word is the most useful thing in that context. It's what puts on the table what's actually happening. We've technically gone past it being in law, but it's still, to the left, it's still obviously prevalent in society. But the right don't want to believe it's there anymore. So it's like the left are trying to tell them it's there, but then the right see it as like, well, you're just calling me names. And they're kind of, it kind of makes them like, I don't know, it makes them feel victimized themselves, I suppose, because they're being called names if they're being called racist or misogynistic or whatever, or transphobic or whatever. That was a bit of a Jonathan Pye tangent, wasn't it?